Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light with myself. And this evening we have Sheila B. Tillich, all the way in America. And today's date is, I'm sorry, I should have said the date first. Today's date is the 8th of December, 2025, and it's 10:12 p.m. here in Ireland. So, Sheila, it's so good to sit down and actually connect with you on an interview. Um, it's really good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah. And I love your community and I love to be present with your community. So thank you very, very much.
you're gonna make me cry. Stop it. Um,
So the energy is strong, I know.
yeah, it's very strong. And please introduce yourself because I know that um you also have the I want to call it the Cosmic Starseed Academy, but it's not. But
It
please, yeah.
yeah. So my name is Sheila Tillich, Reverend Sheila Tillich, and I have a community that I'm the founder of, and I'm very, very proud of it. It's called the Galactic Ascension Academy. And I am a galactic grandmother channel. I channel the star mothers. And my practice that I have is about soul awakening, and it's about helping others awaken as a galactic midwife, right? My wisdom as a midwife is about to help you rebirth and reawaken to who you already are. So I'm a healer, I'm a teacher, and I specialize in the DNA, the awakening of the DNA, and what does that mean? So that's what I do. And I'm very, very glad to be part of your community, to be able to connect with the collective, the energy of love. It's all about love and why we are here, our actual purpose, and where we're going from here.
Yeah. And as you're talking, there's a couple of things that I need to say. Um, I've recently had some over the last couple of months. I've had a couple of sessions with Sheila, um, and I'm that have really helped me. So if you're watching this and you're needing some healing, please do get in touch with Sheila. She's really off the scale in terms of healing abilities and her work as well. And I'm very hard to impress. I'm very skeptical of people. I'm very skeptical of people in the spiritual field, I guess. Not skeptical, but I'm very hard to impress, um, because I've been in it for so long. So
Mhm.
um, yeah. So. And also a shout out to everyone that is having a difficult time because the energies are very intense at the moment. Um, and just because we're healers or channelers or connected to the galactics, it doesn't mean that we get let off from going through life and having a physical experience. Sometimes it's even worse because of that, because we're here to balance the energy. So we do often experience things in an extreme way in order to really understand things on a higher level and then to transmute things. Um, but there are days um, when when we're not able to get out of bed or there's those down times, when things are not going so great. Um, And for a lot of us, that seems to be how things are at the moment.
Mhm.
I've personally found since July 2025 very difficult. Um, And the solution to that is to really step up your game, step into the frequency of love as much as you possibly can. Dance, move, sing, shout, cry. Grounding is I did a channeling on Saturday just gone, and they were really talking about grounding and how essential it is. So I just wanted to mention those things. So, and also I wanted to share with Sheila um, an experience I had. And I'll just do that very quickly because I really want to hear from Sheila. So I had in 2020, I think it was, or 19, I had during the time of the COVID, I had a couple of experiences with Trump on the astral that were very real and um, very real, very real. And I was asleep on the astral and I met up with Trump. I went into an underground bunker, very small area. There was a bed on the left. I'm not sure if you walked straight in or if you came down the stairs. Probably came down the stairs. Um, Maybe, unless you walked into like a underground area. But I went in and it was a very military feel. Like the bedding was, I could see the bedding, and it was a single bed on the left, quite low, and it was like that brown kind of woolen blankets that they get. They get them in the UK anyway. Um, and it was quite well lit, and we were sat on the bed, very small area. We were sat on the bed, and he was in a suit, and I was looking at his hands, and his hands were glowing. Like there was I really could see his auric field on his hands. They were glowing, and
Mhm.
it was blue. There was a blue tint to it, and he was showing me these documents and contracts. I don't remember specifically what they were, but I knew that they were important at the time, and he was talking to me, and he was really glowing, like his whole aura was glowing, so I knew that he was very spiritual. um and he was telling me about contracts or something, and then there was light as well coming from his fingers. um and then the next thing I knew, I was with Putin, in a similar space underground or in some bunker or something, and Putin was also full of light. And he was talking to me, and he was saying, I can't remember what he was saying now, but he was telling me that him and Trump were very good friends, um, very good friends, really on the same team, on the same page. Um, and when I came away from when I woke up from that, I came away with a really deep understanding that um, Trump is working very directly with the Pleiadians. And I now also understand that Melania is Pleiadian. I don't know to what extent. I don't know if she's a hybrid or if she's some kind of embodied 100% Pleiadian energy, but also Trump's son, Baron, who kind of has a very special aura and is very tall, um, highly intelligent. And to me, he looks very much looks like a and feels his energy really feels like a Pleiadian energy. So I'm
Right.
not going to talk much else. I'm going to hand over to you, Sheila.
Well, thank you. Well, my background is about the Pleiadians, and it's about being a galactic Lemurian Sisterhood. I was an actual host for 5 years. And the Lemurian Sisterhood is about women that have become awakened to their actual divinity, who they really are as divine beings. And it is about the first generation as Lemurians or humans, and about our connection with the Pleiadian star mothers. So, Lemuria is very, very special to me, and my own awakening with the sisterhood is part of my journey, why I was here, and my connection to Lemuria and the Pleiadian star mothers. And my through the 5 years that I was part of the sisterhood, it was brought to my attention that I was actually part of the birthing pools in Lemuria, which I knew that. And it's all part of my whole reason for being here. As a child, I always wanted to be a nurse midwife. I always wanted to birth babies. And also, my children ended up having livestock, and I birthed a lot of livestock. So it was all part. And when they were teenagers, I went back to school and was in school to be a nurse midwife. So it's all part of who I am now, but also where I came from and my own awakening. So the Pleiadian star mothers are very, very close to me, along with all the other ones. I didn't quite understand it like I do now, but the Pleiadian energy is very, very strong, and it's very precious. It's very benevolent, very angelic. And my connection with the angels since I was a little girl, I was born hard of hearing, but I could hear angels, and see angels. So it took many years for me to kind of understand that, because I was brought up to shame that I was shamed when I told the nuns that I could hear the angels and see them and talk to them. And I was belittled that that was blasphemy, that I couldn't, it would be a sin, and that I could have a guardian angel. Yes, go
And
ahead.
what did your parents say?
Well, they just listened to me. They just listened to me. But remember, or let you know, I was one of 8 kids. I was number 6. And 4 of us actually have hard of hearing. And it actually was genetic through my father's line. And so, we would know things differently than other people. It was just a different survival. It was a survival type of atmosphere. So they really didn't say anything. They just listened. But they didn't encourage me either, because that wasn't the time, back in the 60s. I was born in the 50s, and the 60s, that wasn't the time to talk about this stuff. It's like, okay, well, I've got out of the way. I've got too many kids to take care of. That's how I felt. But as far as the Catholic upbringing, and it was, you go to church, you do this, and you don't question anything. So they didn't really question, the nuns or what they told me, but I felt the benevolence of them. I always knew that they were protecting me, they were with me, and they were part of me. So when I look back at it now, I can see that at the time it was just normal. It was just normal.
And do you believe in the because I've come to understand that the angels are often have often been misrepresented as
Yes.
angels and are actually ET energy. So do you like, yeah.
So what I always knew was that the angels came from somewhere, and it was higher. It was angelic, very godly, but angelic. And I do know now through all my experiences that the angels are really the star mothers. They're actually the quantum energy of divinity and who we are and where we came from. As a healer and as a teacher, I teach about the DNA. And so I understand it a little bit differently than other people, but it 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 is about this time. of humanity of understanding what they are. They've always been accepted, most of them, for most of the religions, have had the angels in there, but I do believe they've been misrepresented because we weren't there yet. We weren't there in humanity to this timeline. In other words, the energy that is here now and why we are here. But I always knew that they were so much a part of me and that they were protecting me. And when I developed, evolved, and became involved with the Lemurian Sisterhood, I was ready. I was ready to understand that the sisterhood was about the balancing, first of all, the divine feminine, the role, and then also the divine masculine, the balancing of it. Not that the patriarchal was controlling everything, but it was about the women. It was time for the women to rise up, but to stand equal and to be in balance, and for humanity to work together, not to be, put in different ways of living. It was all about balance and about why we are really here and our connection to our abilities, our connection to who we are as divine beings. So the angels were always a part of me, and I've always, everybody that knows me knows that I'm the angel lady. But I also, when I started doing healing work, it was through the integrated energy therapy, which is brought through with 9 different angels. All right, so it is a higher developing energy that's there, and it is done with the DNA about your purpose. Why are you here? So, and that's, my gift and my own life story. I actually have 40 years of recovery work myself, my own personal recovery as a human. And that recovery is from codependency, from what I was brought up with. So when you were talking about what did your parents say, there was a lot of factors involved in that. There's a lot of layers of that, but it was also the family that I chose to be part of. I chose to because our time here on planet Earth is about experiencing and evolving and going through all these challenges or experiences to actually have the wisdom of knowing how to come from compassion and the love. And we as channelers, we bring through the love of the Pleiadians and what they were to us, how they came to us, about the loving, embracing. And so angelic beings is very much, I understood that, being a higher frequency. It's the quantum energy of the DNA that comes through. And, if you go back to, the Bible and, childhood stories and stuff like that about the burning bush, and Moses, and that burning bush was really the quantum energy that's around, and how the angels are incorporated in many, many stories, with Jesus' birth and, how they say it in the Bible. So, and I always had a close relationship with Mother Mary and Jesus and Mary Magdalene too. Yeah. So it was all the divine feminine. I'm going to take care of you. And, down the line, what I do now, besides the integrated energy therapy, which is the 12 spiritual strands of your potential as a soul, as a human soul. And I also do unity field healing, which is the 24th, the dimensional frequency that's here now. And that's with the Syrians. And I didn't know that much about the cosmic, about all the orbits and all that other stuff. But I was very, very attracted to being outside all the time and the connection with Mother Gaia and the stars at night. I lived out west, so I would sleep underneath the stars all the time. I just felt comfortable doing that,
Wow.
So
And
now I
that,
can see it. I can see it all come together,
yeah.
but back then, it's just part of life. It's just how you live, how you live. So,
And wow. So you had all of that as a child, and
yeah.
That's quite that's really special and sacred to have had those experiences. And to me, it feels like I know with myself, it's been like my path has already been laid out. Like
Yeah,
there's a
well,
story about Hansel and Gretel where she's just picking up the following the breadcrumbs,
but
and kind of see that in you as well.
yeah, well, when I share and when I teach these two levels too, and I'm a master trainer. I always share now the story of when I was a little girl, and I never remembered this part of me until about 7 or 8 years ago. And when I was a little girl, I was about 6 years old, and at the time we lived in Tucson, Arizona. And when we lived in Tucson, so when I was 3, I live in upstate New York. I live in outside of Rochester, which is on Lake Ontario by the Canadian border, and Buffalo or Niagara Falls is like an hour away from me. And when I was 3, we moved out to Tucson, and I lived in Tucson for 6 years. So, oh, there's my hand up again because I'm talking with my hands and it always goes up. I'm sorry about that. Let me put my hands down. Lower hand. There we go. It's not lowering.
That's mine, Sheila.
Oh, that's your hand.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
you want to say something?
no, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you in the flow, but my mum used to have a school friend that she was very close to. Um, that moved to emigrated to Tucson, called Mary. I forget what her name was, her second name. I think it was Sullivan or O'Sullivan. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And so we lived in Tucson till I was 9. And I was about 6 years old when I was in the car with my mother. I was the only child out of 8 kids in the car with my mother. Now that is, very seldom that that happened. But we had a big old Woody station wagon. All right. So back then, I'm old. Well, so I have a lot of wisdom, let's put it that way. And so Woody station wagons was, every big family always had station wagons. And we were going down the street, and all of a sudden I said to my mom, I said, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, where do we come from? Why are we here?" And my mother pulled the car over, turned off the keys, turned around and looked at me, and she said, "Honey, I don't know." That was the first honest answer that she ever gave me. I remember that. But also it was that my soul knew. And I had already been seeing the angels. I seen the angels since I was little, you know? So that probably didn't surprise her that I said that with the angels and the nuns and stuff like that. But I never remembered that until it was time for me to remember it. Just like I was always wanted to be nurse midwife, I always wanted to birth babies and stuff like that. And it wasn't until way after my kids were teenagers, I wanted to have a water birth when I had my children in the 70s, but that time it wasn't popular back then, you know. But I always knew that I wanted to do that. And it wasn't until later that I actually went to nursing school for it, even though I never finished my first 4 years and I had an accident. So but everything lined up the way it was supposed to. It was all part of the plan of my evolution as far as being a galactic grandmother with wisdom, being a midwife for humanity, that's right now, and my connection to the Pleiadians. So that's how we kind of connected too
Yeah,
with the channeling with the Pleiadians.
yeah,
And also, these different things that we experience as souls, as humans, we walk in a human body. And just because we do what we do doesn't mean that we don't have any situations or don't have different issues that we need to deal with because we are so spiritual and empathic and feel things different that we go through all these challenges and because we are aware we came here to do this work, but also, our frequency has been different from the very beginning. And what I teach in the classes is that each of us chose the family that we came from. A lot of times when we have so much hurt, stuff like that, we don't want to acknowledge that. And I, all right, was in a lot of pain for many years from my childhood. And when I said I got into recovery for codependency, that was more about the issues of my tissues from my childhood, with both my parents being active alcoholics and being a child of 8 children and being feeling not loved, not being noticed, not being validated, or receiving the emotional development that I needed. It was about survival. And so when I go now into the energy now, I understand that was part of the building of this wisdom that I have now and that you have. And when it's been the right time for us to use it, that's where we feel the connection with others that are on the same path. And it's now we can accept it and we can talk about it. Before we couldn't talk about it. We couldn't talk about any of this stuff before in society. And now we can.
I know. And yeah, and also um we've had very similar childhoods and
Yes.
even lives. We've had very similar lives.
Yeah.
I can see the significance of you being a midwife and giving birth to newborns, new babies, and the connection to new earth, new humanity, the new crystalline human being. I can see the connection there.
Yes. And when I was in Lemuria, I was first generation Lemurian, which meant I had a Pleiadian star mother and I had a human father. And I was actually a high priestess called Sophia. And a lot of people talk about that, the Sophia code. But Sophia is a word of a divine feminine that's awakened. All right. So there's all different ways of assimilating Sophia when you hear the Sophia codes and what does that mean. And I truly believe that my journey, was to be part of the Lemurian sisterhood, to be able to bring that shamanic or, very pure living that was in Lemuria, the first generation as humans. And the teaching that I had, being a Shaw woman or a shaman, very, very primitive compared to what it is now, and the understanding of the connection
There's
with the
been a lot
divine.
of talk lately about butter. Added ingredients in butter, PFAS or forever
That's
chemicals,
Google.
added seed oils that you don't know about.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, they're validating it, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And something that's coming to me as you're speaking, Sheila, is um, one of the messages I had is that is to do with the language and starman and shaman, and how originally that it was starman
Shaman.
became shaman or shaman
Oh,
as
I
we know
see.
now.
Starman. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a connection there as well. I just see you as such a beautiful galactic, so much wisdom, so much strength, and some of the things you've been through. Like I don't know, well, I do know how you got through it, but
Hmm.
there's so much. You're so strong. Like, um,
Well, that's where my childhood comes through and the challenges. And when I got into recovery for codependency, it was 8 years later that I came into recovery for alcoholism. And I didn't drink that much, like my ex-husband did and my parents. I didn't drink every day. What I knew was that I was an emotional drinker, and it was all about emotions, about how I felt and how I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I wasn't comfortable. But it also intermingled with the actual environment and the lessons that I needed to learn, because I did go through a lot of challenges, and my family, such a big family, and financially, and what we went through, and it was all part of what's really important about love, about life. It's about love. Life is about love, and showing that love for each other, even though we've been programmed, it's materialistic, and if you have these degrees and if you have this, that'll make you whole. Well, it's not. And the challenges that I went through instilled a lot of blockages in my energy field, or experiences that I needed to go through to get to the other side, to see how powerful I was, that I could get through anything. And that, and things were tough in many, many areas. But I went through it, and I got through it, and I survived. And it is about experiencing that, so that when I am counseling with someone or doing a session with somebody or whatever, they will bring those experiences through, my own experiences, my mediumship, how I connect with the energy, where I see things about myself in them, and I can identify their situation because I've gone through it. It's about the heart connection, the love flow with the divine connection of love. And so, we're all one. We all go through it. Sometimes we think that we're special, we are special. We are special, but we're not unique in the way where our ego takes over. And, when you say something and people don't believe you, and then you're chastised for it, or, stated, negatively about it, then depends on where you are in your development, whether you can internalize it or you can just let it flow and not affect you. But most of us, things have affected us because we didn't learn any different. That was the programming for the time. Now things are changing. Now it's become, more, we're more aware of it. ESP, we used to call it extrasensory perception, the
And
sixth
that's
sense.
such an old-fashioned word. It's so,
And also the myths about, don't go, don't say things you don't see, like with me knowing the angels. So that they didn't even talk about it is because they don't need to go there. They didn't know what they didn't know. But their belief system, what they were taught, came from their parents that were just surviving too. So my childhood was about survival.
yeah.
And then as I started to develop as a mother and started having my children and stuff like that, and knowing I wasn't happy, I mean, all these things came before me, and it was hard because I was so codependent, be a good wife, take the children to church and all this other stuff. And it's like I wasn't happy, and I really wanted to birth those babies. But when my kids started with the livestock, the sheep and the goats, I was able to birth them, and I was in my glory, so it's all part of the path of seeing the tapestry of my life. And I call that the tapestry, the different pieces of the puzzle that each and every one of us need to put together. It is a whole experience of building the wisdom from this lifetime, but all the other ones too. And then seeing how they come together and why we are here, the work that we do now. And now, with the energy, the new world energy, the new human, the new frequency,
Yes.
So that's where the wisdom as a grandmother comes in, because I've lived it. But also it was part of my purpose, soul's purpose. I also still have those triggers of insecurities, not feeling worthy, being in fear. Now I have tools though. And of course, we know this energy is changing every single day. And we go up and down, up and down. And there's many factors for that. So that's where understanding the crystalline frequency, what does that mean? What is happening to planet Earth. And why is it happening? And that's what we are as teachers, and to share. And we have a different type of perspective because we are using the abilities that we were born with, and also our destiny, right? Our destiny and our soul intelligence and the heart connection, the love flow from all that. So the mother is about flow and energy and love, the love. I know there's a lot of things of connecting all the dots. And I've talked about a lot intermingling stuff, but it also is about standing in who you are as a divine soul, your wisdom that you have. And this is the time where this wisdom is coming out. So the Pleiadians, when you talked about Melania and Baron, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And also Trump.
And
His
what is your
President.
I call him President Trump, our president, because I have great respect for him. And when and a lot of people just call him Trump, 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 you know. And it's sad because it's not respecting and honoring him for the role that he has now. And he put up with a lot, and he still puts up with a lot. But the key is that he's here on purpose. He's here living his destiny, you know, and Baron and Melania and all of his children, you know, are part of this and what they've gone through to get to where we are now.
and what is the media and internet saying at the moment, and presenting Trump as, because I haven't been watching anything recently about President Trump.
Well, everything is happening the way it's supposed to. And as a star mother, you know, the frequency that's here now and what we're going through is profound, literally profound, especially the last 5 years since COVID. But the media has always, you know, set things in the programmed us to believe certain things. Just like when I was a child, you know, it was, you know, they used the advertising about the Vietnam War. And before that, you know, we would sit in front of the TV. We'd always have family dinners together. That's one thing that I really incorporated with my children, you know, to be able to spend the time together as a family, even though it was very traumatic for me in my childhood. But the thing is that we were programmed to do that, to come together as a family. And we turn on the news, watch Walter Cronkite. And then all of a sudden they started showing all these things of what was happening in the world, you know, with Vietnam and stuff like that. So we kind of started getting programmed to see those things. Also, so many years of living it and seeing how people would react to certain things came into play too. And getting married very young too. But my family was very democratic, and we were very much, you know, into Kennedy and way back in the 60s. And I seen things starting to change when I was a kid. And I recognized right away, I did not like President Johnson. I did not like him. I was only a little girl. I was only like 10 years old. And after President Kennedy was assassinated, we then lived in Las Vegas. So when I was from 9 to 12, we lived in Las Vegas, and we went to the convention center where Johnson was speaking. And I said to my mom, "Mommy, I don't like that man." I'm a 10-year-old kid. How would I know? You know, but I knew, and the knowledge that I know what came from that and how the world was starting to change. You know, you can see the evolution of the world all the way from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, you know, to where we are now, year 2025. You know, many, many, many things have changed. So the media has always been part of your everyday life. You know, we started with the radio, like on the Waltons, the radio, and then we went to the black and white TV. You know, we had the black and white TV for a long time. We never had a color TV until later in the 60s, you know, so I've lived that. And I remember the phones on the walls and the party lines and, how things were back then and how far they've come now. And Star Trek back in the late 60s, my one sibling used to love Star Trek, and I just remember loving Star Trek because I felt part of it. I felt part of the stars. And look at my screensaver behind me.
Yeah.
I'm very, very connected with the stars. Um, so media has always been a part of it. And what I have seen from the last 20 years, especially since 9/11, before 9/11, the gas prices and stuff like that, and then way before the turn of the century, how the media kept telling us that the world's going to come to end, all this stuff, Y2K and all this, and it was about fear-based, and I didn't feel that way. And I kind of questioned some of the things. So my antennas were open very early about what was being told was not the truth. That I wasn't comfortable with what was being told. So now it is so obvious that what has happened in humanity and the world, and it's not just the US, it is the world. And it is a spiritual warfare of light and dark, and what has been hidden for survival, and now what is actually coming out. Things are being uncovered because they have to for our evolution, for our survival. It cannot go on because it's gotten so ugly and it's gotten so negative. And because, Trump, President Trump always he loved his country, just like we all love our country. We know the heritage and stuff like that. And to see things change as a man with many years of having children, seeing the changes and his businesses and stuff like that, and seeing the changes from New York City. You think about that, all the immigrants in Ellis Island, and when my family members came from Ireland and Scotland and England, they all came from there, from the UK, and loving the history and feeling very connected with the UK because I was from there. Part of my developing my abilities, who I am, is I see myself in other lifetimes. Many years ago, when I was a child, I remember seeing myself in Africa, with the elephants. And I actually have an elephant picture behind me in my office here of the sacredness of the elephant, and the same with the dolphins and, in the water and stuff like that, the symbolism from it. So the media, I've seen it change, and it didn't make any sense, especially when I started having my children. I always wanted a water birth, but it wasn't part of the technology yet. All right. And then, the vaccines, all the different vaccines, and then the changing when I started having my children of what they were saying we needed to have. It's like, why do they have to have so much? I didn't have that much. I started seeing the changes, a lot of stuff. And I also seen the ugliness of what was happening through all the years. I think President Trump, we were all planted. And I say planted in a way of that we're all seeds. We were planted and germinated to awaken and grow at this time. But it all has to be about preparing the garden, getting the weeds out, preparing the garden, preparing the soil for it to be fruitful. So we had to go through all those changes that was happening. And President Trump has always been very patriotic. He's always been in touch that people that actually know, Oprah used to be very close with him 25 years ago, and many of the celebrities and stuff wanted to know Trump because he was a billionaire, he was rich. So, but also the more he started seeing the changes, the more he became a threat because he was saying, it's not common sense here. This doesn't make any sense. It's getting worse instead of getting better. And so his part in it and the media picking up on that, when he started exposing, saying things that we all knew, you know, but it wasn't part of the programming, what they wanted to program us to think and behave, and the choices that we made, you know, and it was all about the control. It was about the light and the dark, about the control and what was actually happening.
And do you think that President Trump, I'm sorry, is a time traveler? Because I know we both believe and agree that he's,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
de-aging.
Because I can, I've, when he was running before, um, I knew he was going to win before. And where we talk about the Clintons, we talk about all the presidents, you know, because I lived through it. And, you know, seeing, you know, Carter and, you know, the Bushes and then Clinton. And I didn't like Clinton. And no way did I like Hillary. And it was the changes I started seeing, and most of it was about the partial birth abortion, about they put it through back then. And I was very involved with my church at the time before I went to nursing school, and I was a church secretary and very much involved with the sacredness. Remember, I wanted to be a nurse midwife, the sacredness of a baby, the growing and stuff like that. And so I didn't know that it was so special to me, but also I was brought up, you know, in the Catholic faith, you know, about having, you know, 8 kids. My mother really would have had 12 if she didn't have 4 miscarriages, but, you know, the sanctity of
Yeah.
birth, the sanctity of a human, baby. So when I seen that, you know, I didn't like that at all. And when I had told one of my siblings about it, he was very democratic. And I didn't, when I was a kid, everybody was, you know, about the Democrats and civil rights and all this other stuff, and they're just as equal as we are, yada, yada, yada. And then seeing things change, my brother was a staunch Democrat, but I started seeing the changes and I didn't like it. And I told him about the partial birth abortion. He says, no, that's not true. That can't be. Well, guess what? It was true. And then scientifically, my brain, you know, very skeptical, like you talked about too. I needed scientific, but I needed proof and my own intellect, knowing and perspective, you know, what was right, what was wrong, what was common sense, or more the feelings, knowing the clairs, how they were working in my life. So it's evolution. When we talk about evolution, we can use that word in many, many ways, but I talk about how all those experiences that I had allowed the evolution for the awakening to what is happening now. And going back and looking at the past of having that wisdom and seeing the changes. And also, my whole spirit knew that there was more to life. That's why I divorced over 20 years ago, and all these things that started happening. I knew I needed to do this for my future and for my children, for my children. So, of course, I had to face all those fears and everything. But through that, I seen the changes. And when President Trump stepped up to be a politician, you know, he wasn't a politician, he was a businessman. And he still is a businessman. But he's a great hero. He's the best president we've ever had. And he's best for the world because,
Do you think he was approached? Um,
yes,
but okay,
I already know. Yes. And then he just said, you know, no, get away. You know, I'm going to do what I came here to do. I think he knew what he was here to do. And when you see the media and the negative light that they've had him and all the lies they told about him, about felon and, you know, a pedophile and a rapist and all the stuff, that was baloney. That was all ways of stopping him from sharing his light, who he really is, and why he really came here, and the evolution of the earth.
Actually, what I was going to ask Sheila is, do you think he was approached by the White Hats to become president, to
He
be
could
in
have
the?
been. He could
Okay.
have been, but I do believe he's a time traveler. I believe that it was part of his personality. I remember when he was on the Oprah show back 25 years, and Oprah loved him, whatever. And, he was a younger man then, and, he was very good looking, and, everybody loved him because he was rich and stuff like that. But also how people were attracted to him for his light. And they didn't know that it was light, they just thought it was the money, but really it was, I think he knew that what he had to do, and that's kind of like the integrity of his soul. He knew what he had to do. Being approached by the white hats, I think he was a white hat from the very beginning. As I said, as a time traveler, he came in to do this work, just like I came in to do this work as a galactic grandmother, as a midwife, to help with this ascension time. What does that mean to step into the light, to our connection to the galactic, in the time that we're living right now, the awakening of our soul's divinity and why we are here. So I definitely believe that he came in knowing, maybe not consciously, subconsciously, yes, absolutely, because that was his integrity about, his ability to know things and do things and to have the business. He built it. He built it. A lot of people say, well, he was born into money. Well, no, not really. He built it. He might have been given some money, but he built what he has now. And that wasn't given to him. He built it. So, and it's all about, if you work hard and you do the common sense, the right thing. And that's why he's a very compassionate man. And they don't give him credit, but he is unique. He is unique. He's not a politician where, you say one thing and you do the other. And his charm or his personality is real. That's what we like about him, is that he's real, and he is for the little man. And what the media has done over the last 20 years is completely demoralized him, and the darkness took over to stop him from doing what he's doing now. And that's the light and the dark, the the warfare that we know that's here, that we've always known, just like when we were kids,
Yeah.
and the pain that we carry from our childhood, and the frequency that we have. So,
I've recently seen or heard that President Trump was involved um, with Epstein and the parties and all of that. What would you like? What do you think of that?
well, first of all, what they're telling you is not all of it. Yes, he was friends, but he did not go to the island, and he kicked him out, and he turned him in to the FBI, the Epstein's. He's the one that turned all that stuff in. And a lot of people think just because he knew him that he was bad. But that's a way of slander. That's the way of picking up the darkness and running with it. And also, it's about the agenda. Just like the dark, all right, the dark hats, all right, the black hats, about the control, what was actually happening with all the world wars before the turn of the century, and World War I, World War II, all that stuff, that there's, it's about the money and control. And then we have the knowing the technology with the galactic and the negative galactic instead of the positive federation that's here to help us now.
And I just wanna say that I recently was watching Mark Atwood. I don't know if you know him, but he's also based in Ireland. And he's quite well known. He has a podcast called The Cosmic Suit. But he was recently saying that all of the previous world wars there were thousands and thousands of children that went missing. So he's saying that I recently watched him say that all of the wars were um, kind of a front in order to for the negative agenda to um, gather a lot of children, which I can see as being part of that. So, and what I get from that as well is that we were sent or chosen to come to Earth to save the children on a on a mass scale. And of course, it's coming out more and more now about child trafficking and tunnels and um, human trafficking. You know, trafficking women and all the kind of the dark prostitution side of the trafficking and the mafia and the all of that. Um,
Well, remember, it's also the history with all the lower frequency stuff. You know, when you said the mafia and stuff like that, it's also about control and money, you know, the agenda. Uh, and also it's about the evolution in science. So with me doing the DNA, I go back to the codes and the DNA with our evolution and how the star mothers gave us the dimensional chromosome that we have, which is the 24th, which is dimensional. You can't see it yet, but it is there. Well, you can see it in laser technology and stem cell research and stuff like that, but we had to go through that evolution to bring that out. And I believe, you know, it was way before the children. It was about experimenting on what works and what doesn't. And then also the evil part with the dark hats, you know, with Hitler and before Hitler, you know, doing World War One and all the stuff. And it was the agenda of power. And when you see the power come into play, I see it not so much for the children, I see it more for the actual technology. As far as in Lemuria, it was about how did the star mothers live so long? What was the technology? And it was the temple of rejuvenation. And it had to do with the DNA and the placenta and the babies and, you know, what they represent. So when we go back to the 650s and 60s and the Cuban War and all that other stuff, and what was happening with the scientists back in the Nazi time, you know, what the experiment they did, it wasn't only on children, it was on people, and that's how they got a lot of the information. The same with the actual the spaceships, you know, what was being downed and all that other stuff. So it was all about learning, you know, technology that is out there, you know, the reverse engineering, the spaceships and the technology that they had, and how to cloak. You know, there's so much involved in that as far as science and how to use that. But I think the agenda was to use it in a dark way for control. And that was the whole reason for the warfare in the beginning up in the galactic realm. And then also, when you look back at the Bible and about all the different religions and how they, you know, it's always about love, but it's also about war. Who is war, you know, and our history. And it was so much more than different territories, different land. It was about power and where we were during evolution at that time. And it was about survival, but we had to evolve to get to where we are now. And the last 150 years has been fast forward really quick. You know, even back in the 1800s, you know, when we had the Civil War, and then, of course, all the wars over there in Europe and stuff like that. And, you know, the English, you know, here, and, you know, when we came to America and started America. And so it's all about power. So the evolution has been long coming. And if you look at the history of all of it, you can see the power and the good and the bad, or the light and the dark.
mm,
And, you know, what is imprinted within us now is the dark energy of fear, and really about going with inside and connecting with divine, who we are as divine souls. Trump is I think he's a very sacred man, and I think he's very protected. I know he's protected, and it wasn't only the dark hats or the military. Think about in China, and the adversity with China and Russia and everything like that about control and the nuclear and stuff like that. It was all about science. Who is going to be the head honcho? Your enemies. Who you have to fight against, and then the power that it represented. And in China, the communists, and then also with the prisoners, what they were doing with the prisoners, for collecting the organs and a lot of the stuff that in medical to advance what they used. But was it being used for the good or for the bad? And it's all part of the evolution. It's about choices, standing up for what's right or not, or being persecuted for it, which that's what it's all about. Take the focus off the good guy and make him bad so that you would have more publicity. And I think that's exactly what the media has done, especially for Trump, because he is powerful and he is sacred. And many of us seen that, the older ones seen it, but also a lot of the older ones, the hippies in the 60s, and are very much into the not so cool democratic things that are happening with the violence and stuff like that. And it's like the common sense has gone out the window, and then for the negative to come out with our children, because that's where they can stop everything, is the generations coming, and it's gotten so overtaken, everything that's coming out in the US right now, but it all needs to come out, and there's going to be more coming out. When we talk about 2026 and the dissolving or the ending of 25,
Woo!
it's cool stuff, and it's all about the rebirthing, going inside the codes and standing in your light. And that's what I love, is that it's here, and all the work we've done beforehand to get here and the exciting things that are going forward is because you cannot hide it anymore. You can't hide the dark anymore. It's so obvious, but people are so trapped in the programming and their own feelings about it. They choose not to. Let's put it that way.
I think it's too painful.
Exactly. That's the fear. That's where the issues in the tissues come into play when I talk about integrated energy therapy that I specialize in. And I had to go through all that fear to know that the only way you're going to change that is to go through it. You have to go through it. And that's where we as healers come in, where we can connect in the heart center, that we connect in the heart, the divine love. We've been through it, so we know it. Yeah, it's exciting. It's fearful, if you want to look at it that way. But I choose to look at it as enlightening. In other words, good stuff.
Yeah.
And then choose to stay in the higher frequency, that I'm going to be okay. Like feeling those star mothers wrapping around me. I'm that little girl who has those angels watching over me, and knowing no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. Because I know this isn't the end of my soul. I'm going to come back and do it really quickly, because I'm, part of the evolution. It's part of who I am. I know there's a lot of things that we went all over, but it's still about seeing things from a different viewpoint. And what you get over there, over in Europe, is the dark medium, dark media, and what they want to portray as him being the bad guy. And he's not. He's not. He's the opposite. And that's why he was elected, and all the things, with the last presidency and how that all came about in Biden, and everything is coming out because it has to. It has to.
Goodness, Sheila. It's like a fast track of um
It's so fast.
so
Every
fast.
every single day. And
Yeah.
of course, we are electromagnetic machines. We live because of the frequency of our machines, who we are, and how we are connected with Mother Gaia, the elements, how it feeds us and protects us. And then the most powerful emotion is love. It's all about love. And it's about love of the divine, the universe, the cosmic. Yeah, who we are, and that's what's so exciting. And that
And
we are,
it's the solution as well I just see it as this is a
oh,
solution to everything. That frequency of love is,
powerful,
yeah, thank you.
powerful, powerful. And you can't, I mean, you can't destroy love. You can try. Evil has tried, and it has. And it's coming out. And it's like, if you open your mind and you see things, I mean, you can see common sense. I mean, especially what's coming out in Minnesota now. And it's not only Minnesota.
I
So we
haven't
have
heard
all, yeah.
what's happening in Minnesota.
Oh, um, the fraud, all the fraud that's come out with the Somalians when they immigrated here to the US, and the congresswoman who's Somalian, who,
I saw
um,
something about that. Yeah.
yeah, and so
She married her
everything's
brother
coming.
for their green card. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
she married her brother, but all of it with the government finances using that to actually supply the terrorist. And over $8 billion has gone to Somalia, the terrorist, our tax-paying money, instead of programs for people that need it, you know. So, I mean, there's so much coming out. And then, of course, the Russia, 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 with the Clinton and the Obama part of it. And it's all coming out so quickly. And they're trying to snowball it. They're trying to take the focus off of the bad things they've done and put the focus on Trump as a scapegoat when he was the one that turned in Epstein. He wasn't. He threw him out of his Mar-a-Lago, his actually estate down in Florida, is because he was doing the things that he was doing, and he's the one that talked that he was no good. Get out of my life. You can't be in my life. He stood up, and he wasn't controlled by the money. They couldn't control him because he was a decent man, and also that was his role. He's a decent man. He's one of us, and he loves his country. And it's seeing exactly what is happening, especially the children, and what has been done to them in the school systems.
Oh,
Uh, and the shutdown. The Democrats blame President Trump. He had nothing to do with it. It was all about Congress and about their control over Congress. They're the ones that shut down the government.
and that's something that they do again and again and again. They blame the good guy for what they're doing themselves.
But that's the emotions. That's the emotions where that they can play upon that, and they build the fear, and the fear is how they control. That's the power. I'm in power, and I'm going to chop your head off. I'm going to do this and that, and so you live in the fear. It's all through history. It's all through history. Yeah. There's so much.
There's so much,
Yeah.
so many different aspects. There's a famous poster that I saw a few years ago, and I've seen it on the internet since. But it's just a poster, and it's got loads of thousands of circles or hundreds of circles, and in each circle is interlocked with the next one, intertwined with the next one, and it's got things like chemtrails, all the conspiracy theories,
Oh
and there's
yeah.
hundreds of them, or
Right.
all the truths. and they're all intertwined. And there are hundreds of aspects. And we could just
Go
I
on
know
and on. Yeah.
talk for hours. Are you, and if you're not, it's okay, but are you up for doing a short channeling?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I would
Okay.
love to.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. I would love to.
Okay.
Okay. All
And
right.
maybe before you start, if you could please, instead of doing it afterwards, maybe before you start, you could
Tell.
share how people can find you.
Absolutely. Okay, so my website is SheilaTillich.com, and Sheila, T as in Tom, Illich. It's spelled Tillich, but it's pronounced Tillich. It's German, my married name. And I also have a YouTube channel called Sheila B. Tillich Galactic Ascension Academy. So, and I also have Instagram and Facebook. But go to my website, you can get all the connections there. And I have many, many transmissions from the Star Mothers. And also, I have Ascension Wisdom, and actually YouTube, like an interview, just like what you're doing now, Soma. And I've had you on it before, where we just talk, just like what we're doing now. We're doing now. So I love my Galactic Ascension is about helping people live in the 3D world. All right. How do you navigate that energy, especially now that it's changing, and still be in the higher frequency? And that's what the Academy is all about keeping you in the positive energy, staying within the Star Mother's love and frequency, bringing it through. And my healing sessions are about awakening to who you really are as a divine being and understanding all of the issues in our tissues. In other words, the things, the fear and the anger and the resentment, the things that keep you stuck from connecting with this higher frequency. It's about coming to your higher heart center and connecting with the flow. And I do that with two different higher quantum modalities where you work on yourself. It's about yourself, you evolving. And that's what the birthing is all about, the midwifery, and helping you stand in your light, And a lot of people, they want to do it really quick, and it doesn't work that way. Evolution, it doesn't work that way. If you're ready and you understand this and ready to work, that's what I do. I work with people and I mentor them, help them see what is stopping them, and then also give them tools and the root cause of why you're not moving forward. The issues in the tissues, what we talked about, the fear and the anger and the resentment. How did that get stuck? And then how do you use the tools to connect to your divine being of who you are? And that's what the Star Mothers are going to be bringing through right now. All right. All right. All right. So everyone just bring your intention and your attention into your heart center as we breathe in the light and love of the Creator. For we are one, dear children of the light. We are one and we are here, your beautiful galactic family of light. We stand before you as the witness to your divinity and who you are as a divine being awakened at this time. So, dear one, we're going to connect you with the energy of Mother Gaia through your breath work. And we ask that you have your hands before you, your feet firmly on the ground, so that energy can flow up and down from Mother Gaia into your heart center. So as you breathe in and you breathe out, and now that energy is going to go down, down your legs, below your feet, to the roots below Mother Gaia, where that beautiful roots and nutrients of those roots are going around the earth, connecting you with all the other divine light beings that are awakened at this time. to connect the energy of love and light. So as you breathe in and out, this energy is going up your spine and down your spine, down into the roots, now down lower, into the core energy of Mother Gaia, where we, your star family, the frequency and the consciousness of who you are is down in the core, the telos, or the city of lights, the energy of your actual soul, down into the crystalline consciousness grid. And in this consciousness grid is the love and the light and all the wisdom that you hold, dear one. You hold the wisdom of light and love. And every lifetime that you've had is about connecting with your wisdom. All the things that you have experienced as a soul is within the crystalline grid. And this time of planet Earth is awakening, rebirthing, going into the womb of Mother Earth to heal and to feel comfort. And these last few years is about bringing that negative or that frequency of distortion out so that you can bring forward the wisdom from all those lifetimes. The wisdom is your 24th chromosome, is your power as a divine being, as your connection to us, the star mothers, all of the planets that you came from, the blueprint of your humanoid connection of who you are now as a divine being, as a human being. And this frequency in Mother Earth, as you breathe in, brings all the elements, all the power of how she nurtures you. That's why we call her Mother Earth, Mother Gaia, or Terra. And the sacredness of the ancestors as they nurture you, and as all the wisdom that you got and earned, you learned it and earned it. It's coming through right now, dear ones. The crystalline grid is now coming through you now, back up from Mother Gaia. Bring the energy up through the bottom of your feet. Every molecule, every atom of your body, the chemistry of your body flows with the frequency of Mother Gaia, awakening to who you are right now, as this time is recalibrating your molecules in your body to hold this crystalline frequency of light and love, to awaken and heal you. Keep breathing nicely. Now we are in your heart center, and in your heart is the gateway of who you are, the gateway of love. And as this time on Mother Gaia is changing, and those light codes of plasma is coming through the solar flares that many of us are enduring every single day, they are igniting the beautiful codes of light within your DNA structure to rebuild those telomeres that are on the end of your chromosomes, to awaken the power that you have as a divine being. That power is your mastery. That is what you are doing. You are standing in your light mastery, awakening to who you are and the power that you have. And we, your galactic star mothers, are rocking you in our arms as your heart beats and that light codes circles around your body, sending out that light love frequency to all that are awakened at this time, sending this signal out of love and light. Very good, dear ones. And now we're going to bring the energy to your higher heart as we start to connect your higher chakras and the molecules of your body to connect above your head into the magnetic field of the galactic and those beautiful solar flares that are actually helping recalibrate your physical body to hold this frequency of love, of knowledge, of wisdom, of your light codes. That is the blueprint of your humanoid template. That is the shift of consciousness, the energy of the divine, the energy of the universe, the cosmic flow. And it's also connected to the light source and all the helpers that are here, the Federation of Light, all of the actual white hats, yes, the white hats that are here. They are protecting each and every one of you. And they are here. For they have been with your soul since the beginning of time. They have been with your soul through all the lifetimes on each planet that you came from. And dear one, you are a star seed with the seed of transparency, yes, of the truth, the transparent codes of light and love, the white hats, the full spectrum of light, of truth and love. For you cannot undo the light. The light is energy and it cannot die. That is your soul. So, dear ones, we are your galactic family. How you connect with us is set your intention to go into your heart and just breathe in lightly and deeply as you bring that love from Mother Gaia up past your soul star above your head and allow the oxygen to come through every cell of your body and ask us to come forward. For this is the time of you awakening to your power. You are powerful. You are majestic. Your soul intelligence is awakened right now. You are benevolent. You are our children. And we, as mothers, have never left you. That is the love cord, the beautiful cord of love, the frequency of flow. So, dear ones, we will now let you come back to this present moment. And we want you to know that you are never, ever alone. For you are one with the divine light of the Creator. And you are so dearly loved. And so it is, dear one. So it is. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
love it. They just melt. They're right here.
Yeah, I followed you along with what you were saying. I kind of went into the zone,
Yes,
and
yes.
could really feel it. I don't want to say much. I just want to leave people with still in that energy of
Love,
yeah.
flow, love.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me into your community. And we are one. We are one. Bye-bye.